Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I want you to make a big loud round of sound for the one, the only, Walter Koenig!
Nice to be here. I really appreciate it. I've done a couple of conventions in the last month where everybody's there for the superheroes and the anime, and they have no idea who I am.
Blasphemers!
So, yeah. So it's nice to see fans of Star Trek. It's makes me feel home again. Thank you. How are you guys doing? Are you having a good time?
Yes.
Good. Well, let me see. I do have a very small announcement, and then we can get on, open up questions. You can ask me whatever you want. Maybe I'll answer them.
Quick question.
God, this is so much better. So, you know, years ago, I wrote an autobiography called Warp Factors, and it was published in 1997, and I've actually, to my surprise, I've lived another 21 years. So I've been approached by a publishing house if I would do an addendum. They would republish the first one, and they would add whatever I wrote now. So I'm in the final stages of doing that, putting out another 50 pages or so. And that book will be coming out sometime in the near future, I hope. I don't know what it's going to be called. I'm lobbying for Warp Factors and beaming up and getting off. That's what I'm We'll see. So far, I haven't been able to negotiate that. Anyway, so here I am, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
First question down front.
This is sort of a two-part question. My wife and I had just started watching Star Trek, the animated series. So, and unfortunately you were not in that, and so I'm wondering why were you not in that? But also, as I recall, you wrote an episode for that, and as I also recall, you wrote the story from one of the Star Trek comics that I used to collect in the 80s. So can you talk about why you weren't in the animated series, but also about writing for Star Trek?
Well, first I should tell you one of the most embarrassing moments I've had, public moments that I've had, and that's being at a convention in Los Angeles and having doors open as the fans pour out of a meeting and come up to me and say, "Why aren't you in the animated Star Trek?" And I didn't know I wasn't in the animated Star Trek. Yeah, nobody had told me that. So that took me aback. But I got over it! And curiously enough, it was not a substitute reward because I had been offered the job of writing for Star Trek Animated before this decision had been made. The reason why I wasn't in it is Filmation, which was the production company, was a very cheap company. You could tell by the animation. The animation was absolutely dreadful. Just nothing compares to it in dreadfulness. The stories were good, and of course we used the real actors. But they didn't want to use George and Michelle either. They didn't want to use the three of us. And Leonard, bless his heart, said George and Michelle were part of the pilot, and we would not be on the air if it wasn't for them. And if you don't use them, I will not contribute my talents. So they felt compelled to use George and Michelle. Jimmy was going to do George's voice as well as everybody else, every other guest actor, and Majel was going to do Nichelle's voice and every other guest actor. So that's the circumstances behind that. As far as the writing for it itself goes, I was hired because Gene had seen a screenplay of mine. I've been writing screenplays, and I had asked his secretary to type it up. You know, in those days, we didn't have any computers, and my spelling was atrocious, and I needed somebody, and the erase mechanism wasn't very good. So I needed somebody to type it up, and she did, and she told him about it. He read it, and he really liked it. It wasn't anything that he could use, because it wasn't a science fiction story. But on the basis of that, he invited me to write for the animated Star Trek. And how did I like it? I didn't like it so much. The original story about cloning Spock was fun. And I'd gotten that, extrapolated that right out of the newspapers. You know, cloning was a thing back in that period too, as it was later on. And I thought it'd make an interesting story. All the thing about the talking vegetables and all that stuff, that was all added by Gene. His philosophy was, well, we have this technique that we can use, this animation. We can do anything we want without it costing anymore. So let's have talking vegetables. So that's what we had. But it was the rewriting. It was the fact that he had me rewrite it 8 times that just drove me crazy. And so when they asked me to do a second one, I politely declined.
Got a question back here? I actually have 2. First of all, thank you for being here, of course. I'd like to know what your favorite episode is and why. And one of my favorites, which was Spectre of the Gun, couldn't help but notice that pretty much every other episode, the captain always got the girl, but in Spectre of the Gun, you got the girl. How would you like to make a comment on that one? I believe you are the only one that's ever got the girl that wasn't the captain at that time.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, the whole reason they brought my character on the show was to appeal to the 12 and under set. The line, paper, and pencil, and the groovy set. I got an enormous amount of mail. I mean, it was well-conceived idea, and it worked. That's why I'm digressing now. But I'll try to remember the question. That's why when I heard on that fateful day, when we were George, Jimmy, and I were actually doing a teen magazine layout on horses. You know, that's gilding the lily. You're putting Star Trek actors on horses for little girls. You know, you can't ask for more than that. So, and I heard we've been switched from Monday at 8 o'clock, which was a perfect time for that group, to Friday at 10. I said, well, there goes the 3rd season. Whatever the plans they had for me, and they had evidently very ambitious plans for my character. To be in the more of the episodes where we go to the planet and you know, get involved with girls, all of that was part of the plan. So I'd seen the letter that Gene had written to the NBC people, what they were going to do. But as soon as I saw that, I said, that's the end of that. And because my fans are either in bed or they're out at the soda shop, you know. They're not home at 10 o'clock on a Friday watching TV. So, and the question was, what was the question again?
Favorite episode.
Why?
Favorite episode.
Oh, my favorite, yeah, well, and the ones that I did, Spectre of the Gun was my favorite. The ones that I saw, and I think I saw almost all of the Star Trek episodes. City on the Edge of Forever, which was a very, very touching episode. You know, I can tell you a little secret, and I'm still bothered by it, because I was wrong. I was totally wrong. I was at a convention with Robert Ricardo, very nice chap, and very popular on his show. I've never watched, I watched about 2-3 episodes of Next Generation, one of Deep Space Nine, and that's pretty much it. I have to confess, so we were about to go on, and together on a panel, and very innocently, oh, what a stupid question, what a stupid thing for me to say. I said, which series were you on? And he told me, I could see that he was a little taken aback. And then I realized afterwards that that was really an affront. And so I am beating my chest now and confessing and asking for an apology. I never have done that. I should have known better. Okay.
Cleansing, right?
We got a question over here.
So I've watched all the original series, and every time something comes up on the censors, do you think you could do your best Chekov voice saying Captain?
I didn't hear that.
Do you think you could do your best Chekov voice?
My best Chekov voice? I don't know if there's a best. There's only one, really. Can you tell me where the nuclear vessel is?
Hey.
Right, it's gonna go on my gravestone.
Question down front.
Well, I don't need the mic though. Hi. Let me do my job. Watch the drink there. We did this once before. Did you ever have any kind of flack or anyone ever come up to you and say anything about, you know, why are you imitating, making fun of, or mocking someone's accent?
Mocking?
Well, you know, not so much mocking as it would be, you know, what would you say?
Imitating.
The imitation.
Okay.
Yeah, not politically correct. Yeah, you know, different times I know, but back then at the same
You're
time.
definitely not on my good side. I want you to know that.
I may have misphrased it wrong.
What I've had is, when I was doing the show, I had college students come up to me who were taking Russian in school. And they would say, you're not doing the accent right because there's no W in the Russian language. So you wouldn't say Wessels. And my rebuttal was that that's the way my father spoke. He came from the Soviet Union. If you listen, there are German accents where the same thing happens. They substitute W's for D's. And so no, I wasn't trying to mock or ridicule or make fun of. I was trying to do the best job I could. Evidently, there are people who feel I did not succeed. Well, that's okay.
Not me by any means, sir. No. Sure. I think I phrased it wrong. I meant, did you take any criticism from, you know, that kind of thing?
I do have, you know, I got a little edgy about that at one point, and I was at a convention back in the 70s, and 2 young women came to me and said, Mr. Koenig, I just want to tell you how much we love your Russian accent. I said, okay, you don't like it? Fine. You know, she says, what are you talking about? We're from Soviet Union. So there it was. They were really Russians, and I thought they were.
Got a question over here?
Hey Walter, just want to know if you're keeping up with the new series on CBS All Access and what you think of that. And also, were there any props that you ended up sneaking away with from the first series or in the movies you did?
Well, answer the last part first. No, nobody came away with props. I mean, we wouldn't have to do conventions. I mean, the stuff. I mean, I heard that one of the phasers went for $150,000. One of the original phasers. I mean, it's amazing. No, we thought it was over. Goodbye, kaput. You know, see you later. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? No, it's definitely, no one had the presence or the prescience to think that we would ever make any kind of a return. So no, I did have my leather outfit from Star Trek IV, Voyage Home, and I wore it a few times. Not the pants. I wore the jacket. I mean, leather, you know, it's, on a guy, it's got to be a certain feeling for that. So, but I did sell it, and I sold it to somebody who was very appreciative, so. And was there another part of the question?
The new series on CBS All Access.
No, I do not. I don't have Netflix, although I'm getting it. We had to change our television set. It broke down after 12 years. So I'll be getting Netflix. But I've met several of the folks. And I met a couple of people who were Klingons. They've been to conventions, very nice people. And we had an event in Los Angeles prior to the Emmys. It was a week before the Emmys, and it was on TV, and it was giving awards to people who worked behind the scenes on all the different series. And they had one of us each from the Star Trek conglomeration of shows to represent Star Trek. And so I came out, and I can't remember names, but there was somebody from Next Gen and down the line. And then the big finale was Bill coming out with the young woman who plays the lead on the new Star Trek CBS series. And so it was all very nice, very, you know, present. Everybody was very appreciative, enthusiastic. And they came down, and then Bill read this monitor. And it went on for 3 or 4 minutes, and he read it all about how Star Trek enriched our lives, etc. And she's standing there with him, and aside from having her name mentioned, nothing else, she was in no other way acknowledged. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And 15 seconds too late, I realized that I should have stopped it, because then we left. I should have stopped the bloody thing, got hold of her arm, and had her come back down and say, this young woman is the lead on the new Star Trek series. She's not anybody's arm ornament. She's an important person and should be recognized. I didn't say it because I didn't think of it. But the capper is, all those lines that he read, she had written them.
Oh, wow.
It was her speech. So that's just, you know, just all the worse for it. But she's very pleasant, very nice. I did enjoy meeting her, and those who I've met are cool. So I hope you're enjoying the series.
Question back here.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw you once on an episode of Twilight Zone,
No.
that I believe predated Star Trek.
No.
Oh, well, that's embarrassing.
No.
I was pretty sure I saw you, but anyway, be that as it may.
You
I
saw
was all
me-
excited about it too.
You saw me on a Hitchcock.
Oh, I'm sorry. That must have been it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I wondered if you comment on your early, you know, your pre-Star Trek career, how you kind of got started in acting, because you must have been very young. So, can you comment on that?
You want to know my career prior to Star Trek?
Yeah. I don't hear about that.
No. And why should you? No, I came out to live here. I finished school here. I came out to finish school in Los Angeles, spent my last 2 years at UCLA, graduated, went back to New York, studied drama at a school called the Neighborhood Playhouse, who, if you were a younger group, I would mention the actors who went on to stardom, but you won't remember them. You don't know, or you won't know them. But they all became movie stars, 6 or 7 of them. Well, you'll know Chris Lloyd, for sure. Yeah, okay. I don't know if you remember Dabney Coleman and James Caan.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. And Jessica Walter and Brenda Vaccaro and Elizabeth Ashley. They all became out of a class of 70. So that's pretty extraordinary.
Wow.
So I was at drama school. Then I came back to LA and I started working a little bit in like 60. I came out to do a movie with Burt Lancaster and Shelley Winters. The movie was made, I wasn't in it. That was that's one of those things that happen. You learn very early that there are going to be disappointments and unexpected circumstances that you have no control over. And that was my baptism of fire, because I I actually flew out to LA from New York with the understanding that I would be in the film and playing a significant role. Didn't work out. Nobody's fault. That's the way things go. But I did start doing, I did bit parts on a couple of series called Combat and The Untouchables. In fact, a very famous movie director directed the Combat that I did, and I can't think of his name. It's Robert something. His movies, his signature in his movies, for some of you who may know who I'm talking about, was there was a lot of improvisation. And no, you don't know. Okay. But in any case, I started with that, and then I started doing guest leads on shows. I did. There was a series called Mr. Novak, and I was on it 3 times with different characters, and one of them was a Russian. And I'll tell you that story, and then we won't go any further with it because it's really not that interesting. But that one story is kind of interesting, and it really resonates with the capriciousness of this business that I've been involved in all these years. You know, there's some businesses where if you stay with it and you're a loyal employee, you rise through the ranks. You get promotions, you get salary increases, your status changes, and that's a kind of a logical way of building a career. Acting, you know, is very much hit and miss. People who should have made it, who are wonderful actors, remain doing little theater, 39-seat theater, for all their lives. And there are actors who achieve extraordinary success, who I don't think are nearly as talented as their situation would indicate. So these things, you know, have a way of happening. I got lucky, and it's not that I'm so modest that I say lucky, but there are many actors as talented or more talented than I am who didn't get lucky, and so they're still doing 39-seat theater, and it's a shame. But the point of the story is that I went in to read for Mr. Novak, the first one, and it was a Russian. It was a student, a defecting Russian student who comes to this high school in the United States. And the way I read it was he's a very uptight kid who says, "You Americans, you don't know what you're doing," and he's been state controlled, you know, and he espouses sort of the party line, and he has to deal with American kids who are much looser and much friendlier, and he doesn't feel comfortable with them. He doesn't know how to deal with them. So when I read with this kind of uptight, and there was no other, I'm telling you, on my hands and knees, there is no other way to read this part and be true to the character. And there's a reason why I'm going through all these ridiculous dramatics. It's because the director had said he loved me. Great, terrific. And then, so I waited for the call, and it didn't come. And I called the casting director, who I knew, and that comes into the story later. I said, I thought it was in the bag. I thought I had it. He says, well, they're not happy with the script the way it stands. So while they're waiting, they're seeing other actors. And he saw another actor. And I've never mentioned his name before, and I'm going to mention it now because you don't know who he is. But he was in a movie called America, America, and his character's name, and the actor was named Gregory Rizakis. He was Greek. And he came in and evidently gave an entirely different kind of performance. It was all over the place. How do you do that? How do you take an uptight character and have him, you know, bouncing off the walls? And I just couldn't see doing that. So when the casting director, whose name I'll mention, said, the director wants you to come back. He's seen an actor he really likes, and he wants you to come back. So it's between the two of you. So on Friday, I came back, and all prepared to do my same interpretation, but having already been told what this other actor had done. And the director says to me, so what I like is a little more flamboyance, running around. And I was so offended by that. If it had come from the director, it was his idea, I would have tried it. Because as an actor, you experiment, you know, you try things. You know, you read the telephone book. We don't have telephone books anymore. You read the telephone book with great drama if you're asked to. But I said no. I said, character cannot be portrayed this way. I cannot portray him this way anyway. And I didn't say to the director that I'm very offended that you're asking me to imitate another actor, but that's what I was feeling. He says, if you don't do it, you don't get the part. And I said, okay, see you later. And I left. And I went home, found out later, director took the actor home with him and coached him over the weekend. I'll let you read into that, whatever you may. And, but I called on Monday, and I called my friend, the casting director. I said, I gotta come down and watch this kid work. I said, I cannot conceive how he can make this work. I've got to watch him. I've got to see. He says, oh, you didn't hear. What? Dean Jagger, who was one of the regulars on the show, became ill, and he was very much involved in that episode, so they postponed the episode. They postponed it for 6 weeks. Jagger is back. New director. Casting director has me come in. My hand to God, I read one line. He says, you got it. The casting director was Joe D'Augusta. Joe D'Augusta was the casting director on Star Trek. Nice. See how things work? That's weird. That's just weird. It shouldn't work that way. It's too much to chance. There's so much. But anyway, it did. It worked out, so I got it. But, you know, on the other hand, not that you're asking, on the other hand, you remember who Charles Manson was, right? Evil person.
Yeah.
They couldn't find an actor to play him in Los Angeles. They scoured everywhere. I came in, the director knew me as a writer because I had written a screenplay for Marlon Brando, who was a friend of his, and I wanted Marlon Brando to read it because I had written a role for him. Well, Marlon Brando didn't want to play it, and he was very much a Native American advocate, but he didn't want to play a Native American. He wanted to help promote them. But that's the way the director knew me. So he didn't even want to read me. He knew me as a writer. So he sort of said, you know, thank you for coming in, but I don't see you as the part. And it was another casting director had sent me in. So I called up Joe D'Augusta, and I said, Joe, do you think you have any influence with this director to let me read for it? So he said, well, I'll get you another meeting. And he did. And the director said, okay, you can read. Here's the script, okay? I want you to look at this monologue and come back. Don't memorize it, and come back and don't try to do Charlie Manson. Just come back and read it out loud. Well, I took the script and a tape recorder to a drive-in movie where they were showing a documentary on Charles Manson. I recorded every speech of his, every word that he said. I went home and I worked on the voice, and I worked on it. And I memorized the monologue, just what I was told not to do. I came in, he said, hi. And I said, can I have a minute just to get ready? And he said, sure. And he bent down and he started writing as he was at his desk. And I started talking. So he heard me before he ever saw me. I didn't plan it that way, but that's the way it worked out. And he heard me, and what he heard was Charles Manson. And he looked up and he said, my God, this is Charlie Manson. So I went out of there thinking, what a coup, what a score. How great is this? Terrible character. My wife was going to throw me out of the house if I played it. People were getting threats, you know, literally. But I thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity to be seen in this totally different light, you know, a totally different kind of person. And what a great thing for my career. I didn't get it. Elia Kazan, who was probably the most brilliant director of that era, who had directed Streetcar Named Desire and East of Eden and a couple of Marlon Brando films. He had just worked with a young actor who we thought was very good. Coming from Elia Kazan, they were very happy to choose him. And P.S., the kid was great. He was great playing the role, which was a big relief to me. I had one experience where they gave a part to somebody who was not good, and I would have been better. But you know, that's the other side of the coin, where you do is the best job you can, and you're totally right for it, and it doesn't happen. So, you know, no wonder I don't have any freaking hair. By the way, welcome to the Antiques Roadshow.
Got a question right over here?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a really big fan of your work in Babylon 5. I was wondering if you had any fun memories from working on that.
They're all fun. I really had a great time on Babylon 5. I loved working with the people I worked with, Bruce and Jerry and Pat and I'm having trouble remembering names, but everybody. There was no exception. They were terrific. Of course, you know, it was 15 or 20 years after Star Trek, so there was a different attitude toward actors. When we were doing Star Trek, we really had a caste system. It really was. You had the 3 leads and the supporting actors, and it was subtle. It was a subtle difference in the way we were treated, but it was definitely there. And certainly Bill had no thought of us as being movable furniture, pretty much. You got used to that. In fact, you know, it was the way things were at the time. So it wasn't that, his behavior was not that different than I suppose it would have been on many shows. That's not to say there weren't shows where there were stars who were stellar compadres and had great camaraderie with the other lesser status actors. I'm sure there were, but Bill chose to go with the classic approach. So, so there was a you know, I always felt a little diminished doing Star Trek. But Babylon 5 was great. Everybody was pulling together. We were all on the same level, and you know, and when I did the show, I got a chance to do something. I got a chance to do more than just, you know, be an expository character. An expository character is one who sets up the action. Captain, there is a ship out there. And then, oh, let me look at that ship. And then he tells all his feelings. We never had any feelings. We were just there to set the scene in motion. But on Babylon 5, I got to do everything. You know, I got to be a fully dimensional character. Good guy, bad guy, whatever you wanted to think. He had feelings, he had anger, I mean, he had love, he had passion, he could be cruel. I mean, I didn't do any of those things on Star Trek. I was just the guy with the peculiar, not totally authentic Russian accent.
Question right over here. You were just talking about feelings. I was going to ask you a question, actually, too, again, and to be able to do that, such an honor. Is in Star Trek 4, I believe you fell down and got messed up a little bit, and naturally they corrected you with no issues whatsoever, you know, thanks to the future. But Kirk actually said name, rank. And then you said Pavel, you know, Chekov and Pavel, and you said rank. And you smiled and said Admiral. Oh, is it okay if I call you Admiral?
Absolutely.
My question is, like, bloopers or anything that might have happened to you that was, to you in particular, that might have been funny or you were caught off guard, anything at all in the classic or even one of the movies that you could share with us? Or did you just not make any mistakes whatsoever and there were no
That's pretty much it. Never made a mistake. I can tell you that Bill's toupee came off once. In the middle of a shot, was hanging by a little adhesive. He handled it very well. I respected the way he handled it, but that must have been a little embarrassing. It didn't happen to me. I wore a woman's wig for the first 7 episodes. My hair was so short, and then thereafter, although my hair had begun to thin, after my hair grew out, whatever left I had, we just did one of those comb ups, and then we sprayed the back with Nestle's streaks and tips. So, and they didn't shoot me from behind too often. So, so all through the series days, it was my hair, but it was going. I was so long, so long. When we started the films, I started using a hairpiece. I used them through all the films.
I know that feeling. I got this one.
I recently saw a clip of, it looked like a Star Trek story, but you weren't playing Chekov. Michelle and Tim Russert was in it. I haven't found that yet. It looked like it was a grassroots thing made maybe just in the last 5 years, very relatively recent. I was just wondering, behind the scenes, the actors who've worked in Star Trek, is there any effort to try and do, it looked like it might have been some fan fiction or a grassroots type of thing?
You're absolutely right. That's what it was.
Can you talk about that for a
They
minute?
did a fundraiser on the internet, and in fact, that's the part of the autobiography that I'm coming to in the next week or two, and I'll be finished with it after that. But we did 2. Tim Russ directed both of them. The first one was very, very dense with story. There was too much story going on, really. It was hard to give moments to the actors and keep the plot straight and keep your focus on what was going on, because there was so much in the story. But I thought, okay, why not? I can play Chekov as an older guy, and I enjoyed it. It was okay. It was a good time. And then that was Renegades, and then the fellow who produced it, my friend Sky, he came to me and said they wanted to do a second one. It had done well on the internet, and I said, I'll only do a second one if we can kill him off. It's time he dies forever. As much as I have affection and gratitude for my all the years we did Star Trek, there's more to me. You may not believe it, folks, but there's more to me than Pavel Chekov, I swear. So I said, and I wanted to be a glorious ending. I said, what happened to Bill and Next Generations, to Kirk, was reprehensible. It was like an afterthought, the way they killed off his character. This is a character, whether I have enormous affection for Bill or not, we know the answer to that. Still, the character has to be respected. It has to be, given his due. And it was, they had no sense of what that meant, So I said to my friend Sky, I said, he's got to die in a blaze of glory, And so I did. I sacrificed myself in the second film to save the ship, and I did 2 things. I added to the story. I didn't write the story. Still, too many characters, trying to give everybody. The whole point was to give everybody in the film, and there were actors from every one of the series in the film, something worthwhile to do. And the purpose of that was to bring them on board, and the purpose of bringing them on board was to raise money to make the film. The more series that were, represented, the more money, the more fans would pitch in and come up with some dough. So the story wasn't as good as it could be, but it was better, I think. In any case, The only, you know, so I remember. I thought I was going to forget this. There's a flashback scene in it of me as a child, as Chekov as a child, with his brother. If you remember, there was an episode of Star Trek where Chekov says, "You killed my brother Pietro," and then Sulu says, "Well, he never had a brother Pietro," you know. And but I thought, yeah, we could use that. So I had a flashback, series of flashbacks of Pavel and his brother as little kids, and it ends with a climax that brings him back to the present. And the climax was that his brother's trying to save his life and fell off a mountain. So those were the flashbacks. So I added that. I brought aboard my grandnephew to play Pavel's brother, and my grandson, Oliver, to play me. What a terrific moment that was for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, what a super moment. And my grandson is a natural. He's a total natural. But he's so bright, and he wants to do so many other things that I don't think I can convince him to be an actor. You know, his parents are both performers. My daughter used to do stand-up, and she was terrific. And my son-in-law, Jimmy Pardo, has a podcast that has over 50,000 subscribers, and he's a stand-up, works all over the country. But that and the fact that I remember as a child my parents listening to music from the Russian Army choir, and there was one song in particular called Meadowlands, and when something on this order, you'll have to forgive me, I'm the only one that failed in music in my grade school. But it goes something like da 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 da. And I said, that is the music for the ending as Chekov takes his craft into this space station and explodes it. Fully orchestrated. And they got two young English musicians, composers, and they did that, and it was really good. So you should see the movie just for that. And it's available. Man, did I go on. Do we have time for any more?
That's it. That's all the time we've got. Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise one more time, Mr. Walter Koenig.